The story begins in the dust-swept plains of West Texas, where Charles Hardin Holly is born to Lawrence and Ella Holly. The youngest of four children, the boy who would become Buddy Holly enters a world far removed from the glittering stages he would one day command. Lubbock is a conservative, deeply religious town where cotton fields stretch to the horizon and the radio brings the only escape from the harsh realities of Depression-era America. Young Charles, nicknamed Buddy by his family, discovers music early. His mother recognizes something special in the boy when he's barely old enough to hold an instrument. She teaches him piano, but it's the guitar that captures his soul. By age 11, Buddy has already absorbed the diverse musical landscape of the American Southwest country, Western swing, rhythm and blues, and the emerging rockabilly sound that's beginning to shake the foundations of popular music. The Holly household resonates with music. Buddy's older brothers, Larry and Travis, play instruments, and the family often gathers for impromptu performances. But Buddy is different. While his siblings see music as a pleasant hobby, for Buddy it becomes an obsession, a calling that will consume every waking moment. High school years, 1952 to 1955. At Lubbock High School, Buddy forms his first serious musical partnership with Bob Montgomery. They perform as Buddy and Bob, playing country and western music at local venues, talent shows, and on KDAV Radio's Sunday Party. The duo opens for touring acts passing through Lubbock, and it's during one of these shows that Buddy experiences an epiphany. Elvis Presley comes to town in 1955, and Buddy Holly is there in the audience. Watching Elvis transform country music into something wild and dangerous, something that makes teenage girls scream and their parents worry, Buddy understands the future. Rock and roll isn't just music, it's revolution, freedom, and the voice of a new generation. Buddy makes a crucial decision. He drops the E from Holly, becoming Buddy Holly, through a misspelling on a contract that he decides to keep. It's more than a name change. It's a transformation, a shedding of his old identity to become something new and electrifying. Rise to stardom 1956 to 1958, the Crickets are born. 1957. After a false start with Decca Records that yields disappointing results, Buddy regroups in Clovis, New Mexico, at Norman Petty's recording studio. Here, everything changes. Buddy assembles a new backing band, Jerry Allison on drums, Joe B. Malden on bass, and Nikki Sullivan on rhythm guitar. They call themselves the Crickets, a name chosen deliberately to suggest something small but impossible to ignore. Norman Petty becomes more than a producer. He's a collaborator, mentor, and eventually a source of conflict. But in these early days, the partnership is magic. Petty's studio has a unique sound, and Buddy's innovative approach to recording, overdubbing, experimenting with echo, treating the studio itself as an instrument, creates something unprecedented in rock and roll. The recording of That'll Be the Day captures lightning in a bottle. The song, inspired by a John Wayne line from The Searchers, combines Buddy's hiccuping vocal style with driving rhythm and an infectious hook. When it's released in May 1957, it begins a slow climb that will eventually take it to #1 on the Billboard charts by September. The sound of innovation Buddy Holly is not just a performer. He's an architect of the rock and roll sound that will dominate for decades. He's one of the first to use a Fender Stratocaster as his primary instrument. Its bright, cutting tone becoming his signature. He pioneers the guitar-bass-drums lineup that will become the standard rock band configuration. He writes his own material, when most artists rely on professional songwriters. He produces his own records, when most artists are at the mercy of record label executives. Peggy Sue, oh boy, maybe baby, rave on, think it over. It's so easy. The hits come in rapid succession. Each one showcases Buddy's gift for melody, his innovative guitar work, and his distinctive vocal style that combines country hiccups with rock and roll energy. His lyrics speak directly to teenagers, capturing the joy, heartbreak, and confusion of young love with an honesty that feels revolutionary. Television and touring 1957 to 1958. The Crickets appear on The Ed Sullivan Show, the holy grail of American television exposure. Buddy, wearing his thick-framed glasses and looking more like an earnest college student than a rock and roll rebel, challenges every preconception about what a rock star should be. He proves that you don't need to be conventionally handsome or overtly sexual to make teenage girls swoon. Intelligence, talent, and genuine charm are enough. The touring schedule is punishing. The Crickets travel constantly, performing package shows with other rock and roll acts, playing to screaming crowds across America and then abroad. In March 1958, they tour the United Kingdom, where they're greeted like conquering heroes. Young British musicians, including a teenager named Paul McCartney and his friend John Lennon, watch in awe, absorbing every detail of the Crickets' performance and vowing to form their own bands. The influence is immediate and profound. When Lennon and McCartney form a band, they almost call it the Beatles, before settling on the Beatles, a deliberate echo of the Crickets. The self-contained rock band that writes, performs, and records its own material, the template that will define rock music, is largely Buddy Holly's creation. Love and Mariage. Summer 1958 inches, June 1958, Buddy meets Maria Elena Santiago at a business meeting in New York. She's a receptionist at Southern Music Publishing, Puerto Rican, sophisticated, and utterly unlike the girls back in Lubbock. Buddy falls instantly, completely, and proposes on their first date. They marry on the 15th of August, 1958, after knowing each other barely 2 months. The marriage is controversial. Buddy's family and business associates in Texas disapprove of the haste and the cultural differences. Norman Petty, who has maintained tight control over Buddy's finances and career, sees Maria Elena as a threat. The relationship between Buddy and Petty begins to fracture. Buddy makes a bold decision. He moves to New York City with Maria Elena, establishing himself in Greenwich Village, the epicenter of America's artistic and intellectual life. He's no longer content to be Norman Petty's protégé or a country boy who got lucky. He wants to grow, experiment, and take control of his artistic destiny. Artistic Evolution. Fall 1958 inches, New York. Buddy enters the most creatively fertile period of his life. He records at the famous Pythian Temple studio, experimenting with orchestral arrangements, working with the legendary Dick Jacobs. Songs like True Love Ways and It Doesn't Matter Anymore showcase a new sophistication, featuring lush string sections and more mature, complex melodies. Paul Anka writes, "It doesn't matter anymore specifically for Buddy, recognizing in him a rare artist capable of emotional depth beyond the typical teenage rock and roll fare." The song's melancholic beauty and Buddy's tender vocal performance hint at the artistic heights he might have reached had he lived. But financial pressures mount. The break with Norman Petty means that royalty payments are held up in legal disputes. The Crickets effectively break up, with Jerry Allison and Joe B. Malden returning to Texas. Buddy needs money, both to support his pregnant wife and to fund his increasingly ambitious musical projects. Act 3. The Final Flight Winter 1959. The Winter Dance Party Tour. January 1959. When the offer comes to headline the Winter Dance Party Tour, Buddy accepts despite reservations. The tour is poorly planned from the start, a grueling schedule of one-night stands across the frozen Midwest, traveling by unheated bus through one of the harshest winters on record. The pay is modest, but Buddy needs the money. He assembles a new backing band, Tommy Allsup on guitar, Waylon Jennings on bass, and Charlie Bunch on drums. They're talented musicians, but not the Crickets, and everyone knows it. Also on the tour are Richie Valens, a 17-year-old sensation with his hit La Bamba, and J.P. the Big Bopper Richardson, whose novelty song Shanty Lace has made him a star. From the first date in Milwaukee on January 23, everything goes wrong. The tour bus breaks down repeatedly. The heating system fails in sub-zero temperatures. Musicians suffer from frostbite and exhaustion. Carl Bunch, the drummer, is hospitalized with frostbitten feet. Buddy contracts the flu, but continues performing, his health deteriorating with each show. The decision, February 2, 1959. By February 2, after a show at the Surf Ballroom in Clear Lake, Iowa, Buddy has had enough. The next venue is in Moorhead, Minnesota, over 400 miles away. Another 10-hour journey in the freezing bus might kill someone. Buddy decides to charter a small plane to fly himself and two bandmates to Fargo, North Dakota, the nearest airport to Moorhead. They'll arrive early, get their clothes laundered, and actually sleep in real beds before the next show. He contracts Dwyer Flying Service, paying $36 per person for the flight. The pilot is Roger Peterson, a 1-year-old with a commercial license but relatively little flying experience, especially in bad weather. The plane is a 1947 Beechcraft Bonanza, small and fragile looking in the winter darkness. 3 seats are available. Buddy takes one. Tommy Allsup has the second, but Richie Valens, who has a fear of buses after a traumatic childhood accident, asks to flip a coin for the seat. Allsup agrees. The coin comes up in Valens's favor, a decision that will save Allsup's life and haunt him forever. Waylon Jennings has the third seat, but the Big Bopper, suffering from the flu and his considerable bulk making the bus journey particularly uncomfortable, pleads to take his place. Waylon, good-natured and generous, agrees. As Buddy learns of the switch, he teases his bass player. "Well, I hope your old bus freezes up." Waylon, laughing, shoots back. "Well, I hope your old plane crashes." It's a joke, just the kind of gallows humor musicians use to cope with brutal touring conditions. But it will haunt Waylon Jennings for the rest of his life. A moment of casual banter transformed by tragedy into unbearable guilt. The last night, February 2 to 3, 1959, at the Surf Ballroom, the show is triumphant. Buddy performs with all the energy and joy that made him a star, despite his illness and exhaustion. The crowd, unaware that they're witnessing his final performance, dances and screams with adolescent abandon. Richie Valens brings down the house with La Bamba. The Big Bopper's infectious personality has everyone laughing and singing along. After the show, around midnight, the 3 performers and Roger Peterson walk out to the small plane on the Mason City Municipal Airport tarmac. It's bitterly cold, with light snow falling. The weather conditions are marginal, not impossible, but challenging for a night flight. Peterson has passed his instrument rating test just 2 months earlier. At approximately 12:55 a.m. on the 3rd of February 1959, the Beechcraft Bonanza lifts off into the dark, snowy sky. Roger Peterson has been given a weather briefing warning of deteriorating conditions, but he decides to proceed. The plane climbs into the night, its lights visible from the ground for a few moments, before disappearing into the clouds and snow. The crash. What happens next takes less than 10 minutes. Roger Peterson, flying in darkness through snow, becomes disoriented. The plane has a new type of artificial horizon instrument, and Peterson has not been trained to read it properly. When it indicates a banking turn, he interprets the information backward, actually putting the plane into a steeper bank when he thinks he's leveling it out. The Beechcraft Bonanza enters a spiral, losing altitude rapidly. Peterson likely realizes something is terribly wrong in the final seconds, but there's no time to correct. The plane strikes the frozen ground at approximately 170 miles per hour in an empty cornfield outside Clear Lake, Iowa. All 4 occupants die instantly. The impact is so violent that the plane virtually disintegrates. Buddy Holly, still wearing his thick glasses, is thrown from the wreckage. Richie Valens and the Big Bopper are similarly ejected. Roger Peterson remains in the crumpled cockpit. The Discovery, February 3, 1959. When the plane fails to arrive in Fargo and radio contact cannot be established, search efforts begin at dawn. The wreckage is discovered around 9:30 a.m. by the owner of the cornfield, Jerry Dwyer, who had chartered the plane. The scene is devastating debris scattered across the frozen field. bodies lying in the snow, a trail of wreckage marking the plane's impact and disintegration. Buddy Holly is 22 years old. He has been married for less than 6 months. His wife, Maria Elena, is pregnant with their first child. He has been professionally recording for less than 3 years. In that impossibly brief time, he has changed popular music forever. Richie Valens is 17, his career barely begun, his potential unlimited. The Big Bopper is 28, a father of 2. Roger Peterson is 21. 4 young men, dead in a frozen field because of a combination of bad weather, inadequate training, and the cruel economics that forced rock and roll pioneers to travel in brutal conditions for modest pay. The day the music did, the news spreads like wildfire. Radio stations across America interrupt programming to announce that Buddy Holly has been killed in a plane crash. Teenagers weep openly. DJs 4-5 struggle to maintain composure. The music industry reels in shock. Waylon Jennings, learning of the crash, is shattered by survivor's guilt and the memory of his last words to Buddy. It will take him decades to speak publicly about that night, to forgive himself for a joke that no one could have known would become prophetic. Tommy Allsup, who lost the coin flip, carries the weight of knowing that a random chance saved his life while ending Richie Valens's. He keeps the coin for the rest of his life, a talisman of fate's arbitrary nature. Maria Elena Holly, 8 months pregnant, suffers a miscarriage within hours of learning of her husband's death. She never remarries, spending the rest of her long life protecting and promoting Buddy's legacy. The immediate impact is profound, but the long-term influence is incalculable. The Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, and countless others cite Buddy Holly as a primary influence. The self-contained rock band model he pioneered becomes the standard. His innovative recording techniques are studied and emulated. His songs are covered by artists across every genre. Don McLean, born just 2 months after Buddy's death, immortalizes the tragedy in his 1971 epic American Pie, referring to the 3rd of February 1959 as the day the music died. The phrase enters the cultural lexicon, shorthand for the loss of innocence, the end of rock and roll's first golden age. But the music didn't die. It evolved, inspired by what Buddy Holly created and what he represented, the idea that you could be smart, wear glasses, write your own songs, play your own instruments, and still be a rock and roll star. That talent and innovation mattered more than image. That rock and roll was an art form worthy of respect and serious creative ambition. In a farmhouse in West Texas, Buddy Holly's parents maintain a shrine to their lost son. His guitar, his glasses, his awards, and his photographs cover the walls. Fans make pilgrimages from around the world. In Lubbock, a statue is erected, a cultural center bears his name, and every September 7, his birthday is celebrated. In Clear Lake, Iowa, the surf ballroom is preserved exactly as it was on that final night. The Winter Dance Party tour is commemorated annually, with musicians retracing the route, performing Buddy's songs, keeping the memory alive. Buddy Holly's recordings, remarkably few for someone of such towering influence, just 3 years of output, continue to sell, to be played on the radio, to introduce new generations to his genius. Peggy Sue, That'll Be the Day. Every Day, Rave On. The songs remain fresh, vital, immune to the passage of time. The tragedy of Buddy Holly's death lies not just in what was lost, but in what might have been. He was evolving, experimenting, pushing boundaries. He might have embraced folk rock like Dylan, gotten weird like the Beatles in their experimental phase, or pioneered country rock before anyone knew what to call it. He might have become a producer, shaping other artists' careers. He might have lived into his 80s, a revered elder statesman of rock and roll, still touring, still recording, still surprising audiences. Instead, he became frozen in time, forever young, forever vital, forever the bespectacled genius from Lubbock who changed everything and left too soon. The winter wind still blows across that cornfield in Iowa. The music, however, never stops playing. Every time a band picks up guitars, bass, and drums and plays their own songs, Buddy Holly's legacy lives. Every time an artist pushes beyond what's expected, experiments with sound, or treats rock and roll as serious art, Buddy Holly's spirit guides them. He flew for just 10 minutes on that final night, but his influence soars eternal.